STEM fans, are you ready? Let's hear it for the world-class NASA STEM Stars team. From NASA centers across the country, we present Phil, Simmons, and Jessica Caudle. Hello and welcome to NASA STEM Stars, where students connect firsthand with NASA scientists and engineers, as well as innovators, to learn more about NASA missions, career paths, and opportunities. Today's topic is about the Payload Operations Integration Center, located at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. I'm your host, David Alexander from the Armstrong Flight Research Center, and joining us today are two aerospace engineers from the Marshall's Payload Operations Integration Center. We have Jessica Caudle and Phil Simmons. We welcome you both to the program and thanks again for being here. Phil and Jessica are both Payload Operations Directors. How awesome is that? And they're going to actually share a little bit about their background, their career experiences, as well as the work they do for NASA, and specifically how their teams coordinate all the scientific and commercial experiments on the station. So as you're listening to them share their stories, we want for you to come up with some questions to ask them. So about half the program is going to be devoted to answering your questions. So please enter those questions in the chat throughout the conversation today, and we'll try our best to answer them all before we wrap up for the day. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So let's get started. As I mentioned today, Jessica and Phil are aerospace engineers at NASA's Payload Operations Integration Center, and the Operations Center began around-the-clock operations at about 2001. So a record number of science has been achieved on the ISS since it's been completed about fall of 2011. So Phil and Jessica, we are looking very forward to hearing about your NASA story and your work with NASA and any type of insights that you may have for our students. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Jessica, to get us started.
Greetings. My name is Jessica Caudle. I have a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from the University of Alabama in Huntsville. I also have a master's in project management from the Institute of Technology in Melbourne, Florida.
Very cool. So Phil, why don't you tell us a little bit about your education background?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. As David said, I am Phillippia Simmons. I go by Phil for short. I have a BS and a master's degree in physics, and I got those both at Alabama A&M University right here in Huntsville.
Okay. And boys and girls, remember, once again, if you have any questions for Jessica or Phil, you can actually type those questions in the chat, and we'll answer any of those before we wrap up for the day. Actually, I have a question for you both. Have you had any special teachers in your life that have impacted your lives?
Jessica, you want to start?
Sure. So I had a tutor, a math tutor, in middle school and high school named Dr. Hassan. He taught physics at Alabama A&M University. He actually really helped me to see math and science in simple terms, and he really showed me how fun it could be. What about you, Phil?
Yeah, I have a long list of teachers that influenced me over the years. But the very first one that I hold dear to my heart right now is my fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Rencher. And the reason I was so enamored with her is she challenged me. She saw my gifts and my skills, but she didn't let that deter her from pushing me even further than that. So all of her teachings I hold dear to my heart today, and she is one of my favorites.
That's beautiful. You both seem like very busy people. I mean, considering you're both payload operations directors. What do you actually do in your free time? I mean, do you have any free time?
Well, I have loads of free time. In my free time, I enjoy watching the arts. I also enjoy volunteering and helping the community. I also enjoy sewing. Currently, I've been making masks for friends and family and frontline workers. But lastly, but not least, I enjoy all things ISS. Phil, what are your hobbies?
Great question. So I have a variety of hobbies, and I will say that my hobbies tend to change as I move through life. Right now, I'm really into anything outdoors related. So I like camping, hiking. I like just being out with my friends. I'm into photography a little bit, and so that top picture, top left picture there is my attempt to recreate an Ansel Adams photograph. I'll let you be the judge of how it turned out. But I like the arts as well. And my newest hobby is robotics and Python language coding. So the top picture, the top right, is actually a robot that I built recently, just using spare parts and a Raspberry Pi as the driver.
Oh, wow. How long did it actually take for you to complete that robot?
So I put it together in the course of a couple of weeks. So you can tell the wires are hanging out everywhere. So it's not very refined, but I put it together in a couple of weeks. And the coding, the learning to code was the longest part of the process because I'd never used Python before. So I started very basic using the standard hello world coding line that every coder begins with, and I just built up from there.
Okay, that's great. Well, you guys have some really cool hobbies there. I mean, it's great to see that you're both so well-rounded. Let's talk a little bit more about your journeys to NASA. From what I understand, you both direct all NASA scientists on the International Space Station, and people often want to hear about how you actually got to NASA. I'm really curious to hear about that. Jessica, can you tell us a little bit more about your story?
Sure. Well, I was born and raised here in Huntsville, Alabama. Growing up, I was really involved in the arts, dance, music, and theater. That paired with my love of math and science really opened my eyes to the world of engineering. I could be creative also while utilizing my skills. In college, I participated in activities such as the rocket team, which primed me for my job here at NASA. After graduation from UAH, I was hired at Marshall Space Flight Center, where I was certified to be a payload rock officer for the International Space Station. I also went on to certify as a microgravity glove box operator and a data management coordinator. All of these positions do support the ISS. With the support of my family, I went on to obtain my master's in project management from the Florida Institute of Technology. While working at NASA, I have done many cool things and met lots of cool people. However, the highlight of my career is definitely becoming a payload operations director in 2017. Since becoming a payload operations director, one of the highlights of my career is when I made history with the fantastic group of ladies pictured there. We were the first all female flight control team supporting the ISS. So that's a bunch of girl power right there.
Well, that's definitely really amazing. I have a question that came in from the chat on this end. One student indicated that they're interested in becoming an astrophysicist. Do you have any advice for the students?
Since physics
Yeah.
is,
Oh, go
go
ahead,
ahead, Phil.
Jessica.
Nope, that's your realm. I'm kicking it over to you.
Yeah, so as an astrophysicist, you're going to want to, of course, take all the math courses you can. So starting, no matter what grade you're in right now, you want to beef up on your math skills. And then as you're going through grade school and high school and college, take as many of the advanced math skills as your college offers. So whatever they have, no matter how hard you think it might be, just go ahead and take it because the goal is not to be a genius at it. The goal is to learn the skills to allow you to be successful at it. So all of your math courses are prime. Obviously, all of your physics courses are going to be very important as well. And then as for the astronomy courses, I think you'll probably find that, I mean, I don't know your taste, but I think you'll probably find that you like those. It's wonderful to just learn about the universe as a whole. So the
Mhm.
math and the science, obviously, you're going to want to take as many of those courses as you possibly can.
Hmm. Another student came in, they asked, could a chemist actually work at NASA?
Yes, of course. We have a vast diversity of people that we work with. We from teachers to biologists to even people who majored in forestry. So, yes, chemists can work at NASA.
Terrific. And I have a super easy question for you on this end. A student is basically asking, how could I become an aerospace engineer? I need to know what aerospace skills I'm going to need to become that someday.
All right, so I'll take that one. Again, all of the math and science courses you can take. Most universities offer courses in astro or aerodynamics, so you'll want to learn all about those, whatever your university offers. And I would say that even before you get to college, you can start studying the physics of aircraft. I mean, that's a pretty common thing that we interface with aircraft all the time down here on planet Earth. So you don't even have to be super advanced to start learning about aircraft on your own, just like YouTube or books or something. But definitely any aerodynamics courses your school offers, anything like that. And then find a mentor. Ask your teachers or somebody that you are trust as an adult, and see if they know somebody who's also in a related field. It doesn't even have to be aerodynamics, but just in a related field. You might be surprised what you find and what people are able to pass on to you that will help you prepare you to be an aerospace engineer.
Absolutely. And speaking of becoming an aerospace engineer, maybe Phil, you can continue talking a little bit more about your NASA story and how you got to the agency.
Oh, I'd love to. So, like Jessica, I was born and raised in Alabama. I stayed pretty close to home as well. So I went to Alabama A&M University. While I was there, I did a couple of extracurricular activities. The one I'm most proud of is my time in marching band. I really enjoyed that. I played the clarinet, but when I was at A&M's band, I was actually a majorette. So that was a lot of fun. I majored in physics, so there's the little Einstein guy up front. Everybody knows E equals MC squared. While I was in my undergraduate studies, I had the opportunity to go off and do some internships, which is very important, by the way. If you get a chance to do internships, go do those. So I did one at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. So I spent a summer in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then the following summer, I got a chance to go to the University of Texas at Arlington, and I spent a year there, or sorry, a summer there, both doing very different activities, but they both showed me different sides of physics, and from there I could decide which areas I wanted to specialize in. So then after my internships and after my undergraduate was over, I decided to go ahead and pursue a master's degree. So I stayed at Alabama A&M and I finished that. And then in about 1997 or so, a friend of mine who had just come out to Houston or just gone out to Houston to work with the shuttle program, she said, "Hey, why don't you try to come out here?" And at the time, shuttle wasn't in my thoughts as what I wanted to do, but I gave it a shot, and the rest is history. So I spent 20 years, almost 20 years at JSC, working shuttle program for most of that, and then I went over to ISS. And then in 2016, I came over here to Huntsville, and I started working as a capsule communicator, which means I spoke directly to the astronauts every day as they conducted their science. And then in the same time as Jessica, in 2017, I got selected to become a payload operations director. And here I am. It's been a great ride.
Mhm.
Well, boys and girls, education is definitely the key to success, but it's the experiences which open the new horizons for you. I can clearly see here how your education as well as your experiences have led you both to a successful career here at NASA. Now, can you dive a little bit more in paint a little bit of a better picture of what a payload operations director actually does at NASA, Phil?
Absolutely. I would love to. Before I do that, though, I think I should tell you a little bit about what the International Space Station is, because the International Space Station is the bread and butter of what a payload operations director does. So if you didn't know, up in space right now at an altitude of about 205 to 275 miles above the Earth, there is a floating laboratory. It's called the International Space Station, and it's a space environment where astronauts live and work 365 days out of the year, and it's been going on for since 2000. So as David mentioned earlier in the segment, it launched in about 1998, took more than 10 years to complete. And since 2000, there has been a crew on board the ISS consistently. So perhaps for as long as some of you guys have been alive, there has been a human presence consistently in space. And right now, we have the three gentlemen you see down there. These are our current crew members aboard the ISS. Ivan, Anatoly, those are our Russian crew members, and then Chris Cassidy is our US crew member right now. So next slide. Okay, so a little bit more about what the astronauts do when they're in space. Obviously, they eat, sleep, and they exercise. They maintain the ISS. They perform spacewalks. They do public affairs events. But most importantly to what we do at Marshall Space Flight Center is the astronauts conduct science experiments. So 5 days a week, or for the most part, they're conducting some kind of science experiment. So anything from human physiology to biology, earth space, physical science, technology development. They're doing science pretty much all day, every day when they're not exercising or sleeping or eating or just living aboard the space station. And the pictures you see here are some of the, on the top left there's a picture of two of our astronauts doing it's called Human Research Program. Basically, this guy is analyzing the other crew members' ocular health, so his eye health. So that's one thing that we do on space. And then one of the astronauts' favorite experiments there in the bottom on the right side is the veggie experiment. And so the astronauts here, they get to grow plants and harvest them, watch them grow, harvest them, and then they get to eat them as an added bonus. So all of the science that the International Space Station does, it has to be coordinated from one particular place. And that particular place happens to be the Marshall Space Flight Center Payload Operations Integration Center. And I'll kiss over to Jessica now.
Thanks, Phil. So yes, the Payload Operations Integration Center is located at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center here in Huntsville. Here we plan, coordinate, and assist the crew in executing scientific experiments on the International Space Station. As stated previously, we do work around the clock, 24/7, 365 days a year. Next slide. Here at the POSC, increments are managed in every 6 months called expeditions. The arrival of each new space station crew signifies the start of a new expedition. Each expedition has more than 200 experiments, and the team here at POIC are the focal point of execution of US science on the ISS. So as the astronauts conduct the experiments called payloads for researchers around the globe, they are assisted by us here.
So let me just stop just for a second here. Obviously, it's not just two directors essentially just working all day all together. How important is teamwork at NASA? Can you guys go into a little bit more detail about that?
Sure, teamwork is very important. I want to say that we are a part of a huge orchestra, and the pod, what we help ensure that everybody is playing the same notes in the same song in order to get science accomplished. So we do have to work as a team and collaborate every day to get the job done.
Okay, very cool. And to that point, you guys are obviously orchestrating different scientific experiments in space. So I had a question here from a student, and the student is very curious. Basically says, have you ever operated any spacewalks? And if so, how stressful is it in your mission control or in the operations center?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So as Payload Operations Science Center, we do not take direct control of any spacewalks. That the coordination and planning of all spacewalks happens through the Johnson Space Center out in Houston. However, when we have payloads that are being impacted by a particular spacewalk, we are part of that in terms of the planning of that and making sure that we have everything we need to ensure the success of the science. So one particular example when we are doing spacewalks is we have to make sure that all of our payloads are external to the ISS, because we have several payloads that are outside the ISS, again, doing all sorts of solar science and Earth science. We have to make sure that those payloads are in a good config so that when the astronauts go near them, they won't injure themselves by either touching a hazardous surface or anything like that. So while we don't operate the spacewalks, we do play a major part in making sure that they're done safely. And then obviously when new payload science is going up there that has to be installed via spacewalk, we take a big part in that as well.
Okay. Well, it's great to know that safety comes first at NASA. It's also great to learn more about the Payload Integration Center. Big question here is, how is life at NASA?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jessica.
Life is great. Life is great here. It's tons of fun. But I did want to touch on a little bit more of what Phil and I do as Payload Operations Director. Is that okay,
Oh,
David?
yeah, sure. That's totally fine on this end. Yeah, please do.
As stated before, Phil and I are Payload Operations Directors, or POD for short, here at POIC. We are the single point of authority for NASA payload operations on board ISS. So, as a POD, we are the leader of the team or cadre here at the center. The team members are listed there below. Phil and I provide the technical direction to the POIC cadre in areas of crew, procedure execution, payload resource planning, and command and control on board the ISS of various systems, including data and video. We also help guide payload activities aboard Space Station. To do this, we work very closely with the flight director and mission control in Houston, our international partners, and scientists all over the globe. We also help integrate all these activities with science research to ensure that science gets executed.
Excellent. Definitely a lot of careers there for students and individuals working at NASA. And it's also very reflective of there's no I in team. NASA is definitely a place of teamwork and integration with a variety of different types of organizations as well as partners. Speaking of which, when we're talking about integration and things like that, how is life at NASA?
Yeah, in a word, it's fun. I really enjoy it. And not just because of lighter moments like you see there. Two of our astronauts there just monkeying around, grabbing some lettuce out of thin air. It's fun. There's never a dull moment, especially in science operations. You're dealing with a variety of different experiments. You're dealing with a variety of different scientists from around the world. Different requirements, and the best part of it all is knowing that what you do at the end of the day brings home results for future scientists, for humanity, basically. So in my heart is totally with this program, and I've never had a dull day at NASA. And so if you go back to the previous slide, there is actually, for you guys, girls and guys out there watching, there is an application if you want to know more about the science that's conducted on the ISS. There's a free application developed by NASA, so it's safe, that you can download, and you can check out all the different science experiments that we handle on the ISS, from one increment to the next.
And how about you, Jessica? How's life at NASA? How does it feel?
It's awesome. It's great working for NASA. It's a very humbling experience. We do learn a lot on a daily basis. What's really important to me is that what we do, it really makes a difference in our world. I am part of an extraordinary team made up of the best and brightest engineers and scientists that help make groundbreaking discoveries, which really improves the quality of life here on Earth. So, not to mention every day that we go to work, we are literally creating history. And so that cannot uh, go unnoticed.
And you both talked a lot about space science, and the student had a question here. What's the difference between astrophysics and space science?
Hmm. Well, so when I think of astrophysics, I think of the physics of astronomical bodies. So how celestial bodies orbit each other, how they interact with each other due to gravity, gravitational effects, things like that. Um, I may not be the best person to ask, particularly about space science, because my experience of space science is totally biased now towards science experiments. So when it comes to space science, that's where my mind automatically goes. But there is a wide range of um, different aspects of space science. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I totally definitely agree. Great answer. I have some questions on this end. As women of color, how does it actually make you feel to be a payload operations director at NASA?
I'll take that one. So, to me, I feel that, as stated before, we are literally creating history. We are paving the pathway for others to come behind us and go further. So, it's very important to have representation, not only as women of color, but as being women. We are trailblazers. We are making history in every facets around the world. So it's very important to ensure that our little girls see that.
Mhm, mhm. What would you actually say, or what message would you give to struggling students boys or girls who are trying to actually make a difference in their own lives through education or even trying to pursue a career in STEM?
Well, I would say start now. It's never too soon to start your learning. A lot of universities provide summer programs, STEM programs that you can attend to learn more about a particular subject that you're curious about. But in the STEM field, learning never stops. So start now, get curious, and start learning.
Absolutely. Well, looks like we are just about out of time for today. But before we go, we actually have a student challenge for you. So, as you've learned today, scientists actually take advantage of the ISS to study the impact of microgravity and other space effects across a variety of different types of scientific fields. For example, scientists have studied the hazards of lost sleep, not only in space, but here on Earth as well. So, in the sleeping science activity, you're actually going to relate your sleep patterns to those of astronauts. So you get the opportunity to engage in a really cool activity. So you can see the link there to the activity, and that will actually take you to a guide and the resources you will need to complete the activity. So we hope you will actually share your results first with your family and friends. And if you'd like, you have the option of sharing it with us at hashtag NextGenSTEM. Two more things before we wrap up. I wanted to say thank you to Phil and Jessica. It was great talking with you and learning more about the amazing work that you do at NASA. Hope you both had fun. The other thing is I want to make sure everybody's hitting the subscribe button to subscribe to our YouTube channel here. Lastly, join us for our next STEM Stars Back to School special on September 1st, 2020 at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're actually going to learn more about the Kennedy Space Center as well as Center Director Bob Cabana. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We will see you next time. Take care and be safe. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.